I want you to imagine two women. Both had gastric sleeve surgery 2 years ago. Same starting weight of 280 pounds. Same surgeon, same recovery process, same initial success. Today, the first patient, let's call her Marissa. She's maintaining her 80-pound weight loss. She wakes up, she drinks coffee, she then eventually eats her first meal, she eats her planned meals that she planned for the day, and she barely thinks about food between them. When stress hits at work, she takes a walk or she calls a friend. Food actually feels quiet for Marissa. Lisa, the second woman, she's regained 30 pounds and she cannot stop thinking about food. The second she wakes up in the morning, she's already planning what she's going to eat for the day. And during her 3 p.m. Zoom meeting, she finds herself in the kitchen grabbing handfuls of crackers. She lies awake at night thinking about tomorrow's meals, promising herself she'll get back on track. And here's what everyone assumes, that Marissa has more willpower, more self-control, more discipline, right? That's probably what you're thinking. But Lisa isn't following the rules. Lisa's in the wrong. She's not doing the things. Marissa's more disciplined, and Lisa just needs to try harder. But that's not really what happened here. The difference is not willpower. It's not compliance or following the rules. The difference is about 3 brain systems that surgery just simply cannot touch, and it never will be able to touch. And most people don't even know that these 3 systems exist. And I know this because I've lived it, I've studied it, and I've helped over 150 bariatric women understand exactly what's happening in their brains. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly why food noise returns after bariatric surgery, why it's not your fault, and what actually fixes it. If you're new here, I'm Jessica Lawson. I'm a certified nutrition coach and bariatric coach, but most importantly, I've walked this exact path myself. I had my own gastric sleeve surgery, and when my food noise came back about 12 months after my surgery, I was absolutely devastated. I remember standing in the kitchen at 2 p.m., hand in a bag full of mixed nuts, and thinking to myself, what is wrong with me? Like, what is wrong with me, Jessica? I had surgery. This was supposed to be fixed. I was never supposed to struggle with food again. And I felt like I was failing at the one thing that was supposed to save me. In my brain, I thought that was surgery. I dove deep into the research and I went and got certified as well. I spent months studying the neuroscience, reading every single medical study, medical paper that I could find about the brain and eating behavior, specifically after bariatric surgery. And I had to understand what was actually happening to me. And what I discovered changed really everything. And I'm going to walk you through some of my findings during this video. I've now helped over 150 bariatric women understand why food noise has returned and why it was always going to return. And I've also had over 1,000 conversations with bariatric patients in general who have regained weight. You don't understand. It's so common. So common. And here's what I've learned along the way. What happened to me? What happened to Lisa? What might be happening to you right now? It follows extremely predictable patterns. This is not random. It's not a character flaw. It's not a lack of discipline. It's neuroscience. All right. And when you understand what's actually happening in your brain, everything makes sense. And more importantly, it becomes more clear and completely fixable. And actually, before I dive into the science, let me tell you, I'm teaching all of this in a free workshop soon called How to Eliminate Food Noise After Bariatric Surgery Without Shots or Extreme Dieting. Now, if you're watching this before January 14th, awesome. Click the link in the description or go link in my bio to sign up for that workshop. If you're watching this after January 14th, go click the link below and sign up to be notified about future workshops that I do. I don't know if I'm gonna do this one again, but we'll see. Or go sign up for my free masterclass. It walks you through why regain happens and how to stop it. And here's what you're gonna learn in the next few minutes. The real neuroscience behind why food noise returns after surgery. I'm gonna show you the 3 brain systems that control your eating behavior and why surgery only addresses one of them. You're going to understand exactly why this happened to you, why it's not your fault, and what actually works to fix it. And we're going to what surgery changes in your brain, what it doesn't change, and the specific brain retraining approach that actually works to quiet food noise permanently. And so by the end of this video, you're going to have a complete different understanding of what's been happening to you. Instead of feeling broken, you're going to feel empowered, because once you understand how your brain works, you can start working with it instead of against it. So let's start with what surgery actually does to your brain and what it doesn't. Surgery shrinks your stomach. That's the mechanical change that everyone understands, right? Not actually shrinks You're amputating it, but you get the point. Your stomach goes from the size of a football or however big it is, all right? It varies from person to person, to the size of an egg or a small banana, all right? That's very dramatic and immediate. You have an immediate result there. But surgery also temporarily changes your hunger hormones, specifically ghrelin and leptin. Ghrelin is your hunger hormone. It's what makes your stomach growl and drives you to seek food. And leptin is your fullness hormone. It tells your brain when you've had enough, when you're full. And after surgery, ghrelin production drops significantly. Leptin signaling improves. So this creates restriction. So you feel full faster initially. Remember those honeymoon days? I'm sure you do. You literally cannot eat the same volume of food that you used to eat. And because your hunger hormones are altered, you don't feel the same driving hunger that you experienced before surgeries. This is why the first 6 to 12 months often feel easier and are called the honeymoon period. Your brain is getting clear signals, probably the clearest signals that you've gotten in decades. It's telling you, I'm not that hungry, or I'm full now. And it feels like the food noise has been turned down, and sometimes all the way down, not completely gone. But here's where things get complicated, is that most bariatric patients expect surgery to eliminate cravings permanently. I know I did. You thought that maybe those 3 p.m. kitchen visits would just stop. Or the nighttime kitchen visits. That was my kryptonite. You believed that the mental pull toward food would disappear, along with your physical hunger. Maybe you thought that surgery would make healthy choices automatic, or that you'd naturally reach for protein and vegetables, that you'd stop wanting the foods that got you into trouble in the first place, like cookies or Oreos or ice cream or cake, or just none of that. You're not a sweets person. Maybe it's salty foods. High carb, high fat foods typically. You believed that surgery would quiet the mental chatter about food, that constant background noise of what should I eat? When should I eat? Should I eat this? I shouldn't eat that. You expected that mental tug of war to finally be over, but most of all, you probably expected to feel normal around food for the first time in your adult life, or maybe your entire life. To be one of those people who just eats when they're hungry and stops when they're full. Wild. I know. And someone that does that without thinking about it constantly. And for a while, maybe it felt like that's what was actually happening. But then something changed, something shifted. Here's the reality no one prepared you for. Surgery is just a tool. I know everyone says that. I think that term's very overused, but surgery is just one way can help you lose weight and achieve your health goals. And it's a powerful one, but it's not a complete transformation. Because surgery changes your stomach, it does not change the neural pathways in your brain that drive you to seek food for comfort, stress relief, or emotional regulation. It doesn't rewire the habit loops that have been strengthened over years or decades. It doesn't automatically shift your identity from someone who struggles with food to someone who has food figured out. And that gap between what you expected surgery to do and what it actually does, that is where the shame starts. And I see this over and over and over. When the food noise comes back, and it will, when you find yourself grazing again, when the mental chatter returns, your brain doesn't think, oh, this makes sense because surgery's only addressed part of the problem. No, your brain goes into stressed out mode, complete panic mode, and thinks, oh my goodness, I'm broken. Surgery was supposed to fix this. If surgery didn't work, nothing will work. I must be the problem. But I want you to know, you are not the problem. The problem is that you were never set up for success. You were given a tool without the operating manual. So let me show you exactly what I mean by explaining the 3 brain systems that help control your eating behavior. Your brain has 3 distinct systems that control your eating behavior, and surgery only addresses one of them. System number 1, your physical hunger and fullness system. This system's located in your hypothalamus. Think of it as your brain's control center. It's constantly monitoring your body's energy needs and sending signals about what to eat and when to stop. This system responds to stomach stretch, blood sugar levels, and hormones like ghrelin and leptin that I mentioned earlier. And when your stomach stretches, it sends a full signal. And when your blood sugar drops, it sends a hungry signal. When ghrelin rises, it says it's time to eat, Jessica. When leptin rises, it says you've had enough. So surgery directly impacts this system by changing your stomach size and hormone production. Your smaller stomach stretches faster, sending earlier fullness signals, and your altered hormone production means less ghrelin driving hunger and better leptin signaling fullness. This is why you might feel fuller faster. This means that the system is working exactly as intended, but here's what most people don't. This is just one of the 3 systems that control your eating behavior. Just one. Let's talk about system number 2, your stress response system. This system is controlled by your amygdala, your brain's alarm system. This is your ancient survival system, and it's incredibly powerful when you're stressed, whether it's a work deadline, a family conflict, or even just feeling overwhelmed. Your amygdala activates and releases cortisol, your stress hormone. Cortisol literally drives you to seek quick energy sources, and that means food. Specifically, it makes you crave foods that will give you fast energy, but kinds that we want to deprioritize and try to avoid, not the good kinds. This is not a character flaw. It is quite literally biology. And this is an ancient survival mechanism that's been designed to keep you alive during threats. For thousands of years, stress usually meant physical danger, being chased by a lion, or food scarcity. Your brain learned that when stress hits, you need to eat to survive whatever is coming your way. You need the energy. Here's the problem with that. We don't live in the ancient times anymore. We live in the 21st century. Your brain can't tell the difference between a saber-toothed tiger and a stressful Zoom meeting with your team. The stress response is exactly the same. This is why you find yourself in the kitchen during work stress, or even when you're not physically hungry. Your hypothalamus, system number 1, is saying, Jessica, you're not hungry. But your amygdala, system number 2, is screaming, you need food now in order to survive. Surgery cannot and does not change this system. Your amygdala doesn't care. It simply just doesn't care that you had gastric sleeve surgery. And when stress hits, it's going to drive you towards food, straight to food for relief, especially if that's what you've trained it over and over and over to do your entire life. System number 3, the habit loop system. This system is controlled by your basal ganglia, your brain's autopilot center. This is where automatic behaviors live. This part of your brain creates automatic patterns that neuroscientists call habit loops. You have the trigger, the behavior, and then the reward. Here's a common example. It's afternoon, 3 p.m. Stress hits from an email from a client or a work deadline. That's your trigger here. You walk to the kitchen and grab a handful of crackers. That's the behavior. You get temporary relief from the stress by eating the crackers, and that's your reward. Do this enough times and your brain creates a new neural pathway. These neural pathways are like hiking trails in your brain. And the first time you walk a trail, you got to push through brush and branches. A lot of stuff. But the more you use that trail, the clearer and easier it becomes to walk. The more you use that pathway, the pathway that tells your brain it's 3 p.m., let's go to the kitchen when we're stressed, get some relief. That pathway, the more automatic it becomes. And eventually, you don't even consciously decide to go to the kitchen. Your feet just take you there. Whatever your trigger time is, you've probably found yourself randomly in the place where you know that things are. Surgery doesn't erase these mental highways. They're still there, waiting, lurking, waiting to be used. And the pathway from afternoon stress to the kitchen visit is just as clear after surgery as it was before surgery. So now you can kind of see what's happening, right? Surgery changed system number 1, your physical hunger and your fullness signals. But systems 2 and 3, your stress response and your habit loops, those are completely unchanged. And for the first few months after surgery, system 1 is so dramatically different that it can override systems 2 and 3. Restriction can be so powerful. The hormone change is so significant that even when the worst stress hits or old triggers activate, you physically just simply cannot eat the way you used to. If you used to binge eat, that's not going to happen. But as your body adapts to surgery, as the restriction loosens slightly and hormones normalize, systems 2 and 3, they start reasserting themselves. And that's when the food noise comes roaring back. Look, this is not failure. This is predictable. And it's neuroscience. So let me show you how this plays out in real life. I had a client, Maria, who came to me 18 months after her surgery. She was a successful marketing leader and she lost 75 pounds right after her surgery, but she regained 25 pounds and was panicking. I remember in our very first call, she told me, Jessica, I don't even understand. I'm not even hungry when I eat. But at 3 p.m. during my team meetings, I find myself in the kitchen. I'll grab a handful of nuts. I'll grab a candy bar because that's what's on the office counter, some crackers, and then before I know it, I've eaten 600, 700, 800 calories, and it wasn't even because I was hungry. It's just because it was there. This is systems 2 and 3 in action. Her hypothalamus, system 1, was saying, Maria, you're not hungry. But the other parts of her brain, for example, her amygdala, system number 2, was responding to the meeting stress with go get food for survival. And then system number 3 had created an automatic pathway. The meeting stress, the kitchen, the relief. Once Maria and I started working together and she really understood that this was not a willpower problem, but really truly a brain rewiring problem, everything changed. We retrained all 3 systems, and now those 3 p.m. meetings don't even register as food triggers anymore, and they haven't for months. Now, let me explain why food noise doesn't just return, why it often gets louder than it was before surgery, because your brain has something called neuroplasticity, the ability to constantly rewire itself based on what you do most often. So think of it like this. Your brain strengthens the pathways, those hiking trails that we just talked about, the hiking trails that you use most, and it weakens the pathways that you don't use. So if you keep using food for stress relief after surgery, that pathway doesn't just stay the same. It becomes super highway strong, like the Autobahn in Germany. Every time you go to the kitchen when you're stressed, you're reinforcing that neural pathway. You're making it faster, stronger, more automatic. You're creating the Hulk, the Captain America, the Spider-Man of neural pathways. Meanwhile, surgery's effects on hunger start to normalize over time. Your stomach capacity becomes a little bit larger. Your hormones adapt. The dramatic restriction that you felt on day 1 or the honeymoon period in the first few months starts to feel a lot less dramatic. Here's a timeline how this typically unfolds. Months 1 to 6 after surgery, that's when effects are at their strongest. The restriction is powerful. Hormone changes are dramatic, and old patterns are pretty disrupted, if not completely disrupted. Even if stress hits, you physically cannot eat the same way that you used to. This feels like a victory. I remember feeling that way in particular. I remember feeling an abundance of stress at one point early on in my journey and just not having the urge to stress eat at all. And I couldn't believe that that was possible. And that was evidence that made me feel like surgery did change me. Like I said earlier, it did not. Then months 6 to 12 or 6 to 18, this timeline can really vary from person to person. The surgery effects start to normalize. Your stomach becomes a little bit bigger, hormones have adapted, you can eat a bit more, and slowly stress patterns start returning. This is why a lot of people regain weight when very stressful periods of their life happen. Maybe it's just a few crackers during a stressful afternoon. Maybe it's finishing your kid's sandwich. Small things that don't seem like a big deal. Now, months 12 and beyond, the old neural pathways are fully reactivated. The stress to food highway is not just back. It's stronger than ever because you've been reinforcing it. Food noise returns, and often it is louder, much louder than before surgery. I had another client, Jennifer, who called me crying at 20 months post-op. She told me, Jessica, I thought I was cured. For the first year, I barely thought about food. Now I'm obsessing over it constantly, and I've gained 15 pounds. What on earth is wrong with me? Here's what I told Jennifer. Jennifer, there's nothing wrong with you. Your neural pathways simply reactivated. Exactly on schedule, honestly. Look, this is not failure. This is predictable neuroscience. But here's what I want you to know. There's another layer that makes this even more complicated. It's your brain's identity system, because your brain also has an identity that drives your behavior. It's called cognitive consistency. Your brain absolutely hates contradictions. So it will work incredibly hard to make your behavior match your beliefs about yourself. If you still see yourself as someone who struggles with food, which you might have felt like you struggled with food for 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 plus years. I know that's how I felt. But if your brain truly believes that, your brain will then create evidence to match that identity. So when reading starts, when food noise starts, your brain doesn't think, oh, this is just systems 2 and 3 reasserting themselves that I learned about in that one YouTube video. Your brain tells yourself, see, I knew this wouldn't last. This is just who you are. You're the person who can't control themselves around food, and even surgery couldn't fix you. I'm sure so many people watching this have been. So then this creates a self-fulfilling prophecy that is incredibly powerful. Your brain will actually drive behaviors that confirm your identity, even when that identity is working against you. So why isn't any of this your fault? I want to be super, super clear. First, there's a massive education gap. No one talks about this. I'm really one of the first people that I've ever heard on the internet talking about this. And no one taught you about these 3 brain systems before surgery. I know your surgeon didn't sit you down and tell you, or your nutritionist didn't either. You went through months of pre-surgical education, maybe. Maybe you learned about diets, protein goals, all of that. But nobody talked about how surgery only addresses system 1, physical hunger and fullness. Or if they did, they definitely did not talk about 2 and 3. Or maybe you were someone that was told that surgery would help with cravings. And everyone assumed that meant all cravings. But that's only system 1. System 2 and system 3, your stress response and habit loops, those were left completely unaddressed. It's like someone giving you a new car, but never teaching you ever how to drive it. Well, you have a pretty good car. And then when you crash, everyone then says, well, you had a perfectly good car. You must not have been trying hard enough or doing the right things, right? That's what everyone says when you regain weight or when you're struggling with food noise or stress eating. They blame it on you. Second, there's the biological reality. Your brain is doing exactly what it's been designed to do. It's trying to protect you using the only methods that it knows, the stress eating response that driving you to the kitchen, that kept your ancestors alive during famines and threats. For thousands of years, stress meant danger and eating meant survival. You got to remember that we're products of natural evolution. Your brain doesn't know that you live in the year 2026 and there's an abundance of food. You can get it anywhere and everywhere. And Zoom meetings are what's keeping you laid up at night, or emails from clients instead of saber-toothed tigers. Those habit loops, those exist to make your life more efficient. Your brain creates automatic behavior so that you don't have to consciously think about every single action you take. The problem isn't that you have habit loops. The problem is really that no one has taught you how to intentionally create the ones that you want. Lastly, this is not a personal failure. Out of the 1,000 people that I talked to that have been regaining weight, 99% of them felt like they had failed their surgery. Isn't that sad? But this is really a systems failure, an education failure. You weren't given the right tools or knowledge to retrain your brain. You were given one powerful tool, which was surgery, but that's only part of the instruction manual. It's like you were trying to build a table, but you were only given a hammer when what you really needed was the wood for the top, the legs, the leaf, the chairs, screws, screwdriver, drill, all of that. Here's the thing though, the solution is not fighting your brain. Your brain is not the enemy, and it's definitely not more willpower. Willpower is going to get you nowhere, friends. The solution is working with your brain, understanding how it works, and giving it what it needs to support your success instead of sabotaging it. And that's exactly what I teach my clients how to do. And here's what I want you to know. Your brain is incredibly trainable. The same neuroplasticity that created these patterns can create new ones. Now, you can retrain all 3 systems, but you just need the right approach. You can't just willpower your way through system 2's stress response or ignore system 3's habit loops. You need specific strategies for each system. And I've done this myself. When my own food noise came back, I used these exact methods to retrain my brain, and now I've helped over 150 bariatric patients do the exact same thing. And I think about my client Rachel, who came to me convinced that she was broken because her food noise returned, even on the GLP-1, just a few months into the program, even a few weeks. She realized that she went through an incredibly stressful week without once thinking about using food for relief. She told me her brain actually feels quiet, and you can learn more about Rachel and her story at this link. That's what's possible when you retrain all 3 systems. When you address all 3 systems, when you retrain your stress response, rewire your habit loops, and shift your identity, food noise actually goes away. Not temporarily, but permanently. You don't need an injection. You don't need meds for this. You don't need a second surgery. All of this is exactly what I'm going to be teaching in my free workshop coming up. How to eliminate food noise after bariatric surgery without shots or extreme dieting. Because you don't need those things. In this workshop, I'm going to show you how to retrain these systems so that food noise goes away, plus walk you through how to stay consistent when life gets chaotic. It's Wednesday, January 14th at 8 p.m. Eastern, live on Zoom. Click the link in the description below or the link in my bio to register. Your brain got you into this pattern, but your brain can also get you out. You just need the right roadmap and guidance. I'll see you in the workshop.